Have you ever thought about getting into farming or homesteading, but then heard someone say, oh, don't bother, the government will shut you down before you even start? Maybe you've wondered why something as simple as selling eggs, raw milk, homegrown vegetables, or butchered meat suddenly feels like you need a lawyer or a stack of paperwork and an entire filing cabinet just to stay out of trouble. If you've ever felt this hesitation, that fear of being tangled up in red tape, or the frustration of thinking, why is growing food for my community treated like a crime, you're not alone. Welcome back to Dawn's Dirt. I'm Dawn, and I help everyday people and small farmers build real farm-to-table lives, get creative with their space and skills that they already have, and push back against the food system that is drowning in bureaucracy. Today, we're diving into the reality of farming in Canada right now. The CFIA's overreach, the government killing healthy ostriches, the raw milk laws that make no sense, the $10,000 worth of certifications forced onto small vegetable growers, and Health Canada approving cloned meat and not even requiring labels so that you can tell what you're eating. This episode is about why government bureaucracy is scaring people away from farming and pushing small farmers out. And why now, more than ever, we need real farmers, small farmers, real food, and real community. Let's jump in. So farming today seems like it's not just growing food and raising food. It's also navigating all the bureaucracy, all the ins and outs, all the regulations, all of the thou shalt this and thou shalt that and rules and regulations that the government comes up with in order for you to be able to raise your food, grow your food, butcher your food, and then sell your food. The rules and regulations are insane. So I've heard a lot of people say that they're terrified to get into farm to table sales because of the bureaucracy. Well, what are the rules? What are the regulations? What can you do? What can't you do? Man, they make it so hard these days to get into farming. And that's the problem is, there are a lot of rules and regulations. When it comes to raw dairy in Canada, you're not even allowed to sell it. You're allowed to drink it for your own personal use. I even went so far as to drink or bring my raw dairy, my goat milk this summer. I brought it to a farmer's market, one jar of it, because that's not illegal because it was for my own personal use and I drank my raw milk in my booth. But if I were to sell that raw milk, I would be fined thousands and thousands of dollars or go to jail. And so that's the problem is a lot of people are scared to get into farm to table sales because what are the rules and regulations? What can you and can you not do? And there's different rules and regulations depending on where you are in Canada, the province you're in. Even it can differ health board to health board. Sometimes, so I'm here in Alberta, and when I had my stores and when I had my farm, the rules and regulations actually changed even from my farm and my store in the town of Olds, even into Calgary, depending on the different health inspector that you got, the rules and regulations changed a bit. And that was really frustrating to even navigate. I had a problem with my eggs. So when I had my farm, I had two stores. I had a store in Olds and I had a store in Calgary. So they were both farm to table stores. They both were taking food from farms, turning around, marking it up a little bit. I was a businesswoman and selling it. It was actually helpful to the farmers that I took a little bit of a cut to. It was almost like a co-op, but it wasn't a co-op. It was my store. But it was almost like a co-op. And I had chickens and I had eggs. And the health unit in Olds, she was amazing. She realized that, hey, I'm a farmer. I have uninspected eggs. Uninspected eggs were not actually allowed to be in stores and things like that. But she kind of went, well, it's slightly a gray area. I know that you're the farmer. Your farmer. Your farm owns this store, and therefore I'm just going to kind of turn a blind eye and just not know and just not recognize or realize or just not say too much to not have those eggs in the store. Then I went to Calgary. And that health inspector, I wanted to sell the same eggs from my farm. So I'm the farmer. I want to sell my eggs, which according to the rules, I'm allowed to sell wherever I want to sell my farm to table eggs because there is no rule on uninspected eggs in Alberta. I'm allowed to sell them to customers. And I went to that health inspector and she said, those eggs are not allowed to be in your store. And if you have those uninspected eggs in your store, we are going to shut your store down. And so that's the thing. Tricky Dicky Dawn, I said, I'm gonna follow your rules because you said it, because you're gonna shut my store down. But I'm gonna think of creative ways to sell these eggs that are outside of the box. So what did I do? I bought the shittiest old fridge. I put it outside of the front door of my store because I knew if it was the ugliest thing you've ever seen, it was in the city of Calgary, right on a very busy corner. But I didn't want to move a fridge in and out of the store. And so I put this shitty fridge outside because no one was going to steal it. And I put my eggs outside of the store. People bought my eggs just right outside the front door because it was not in the four walls of the building that I was operating my store out of. And so that's the thing. You don't have to be scared of the bureaucracy. You don't have to be scared of the rules and regulations. There is ways to work around it within the rules, following the rules, but still outside of the rules, with the exception of raw dairy. That's pretty hard-nailed, hard-coffined. You can't get around those rules. People try, but to the letter of the law, you can't get around them. So people are terrified of getting into trouble before they even start their farm-to-table farm or farm-to-table business. So they don't want to lose their farms, because that's the thing. If you got, let's say you did do raw dairy. Let's say you said, I'm not going to follow the rules. I'm going to do whatever I wanted to. People are scared of losing their farm. And so if you got caught and if you had the fines and the jail and the whatever, the government could really sink your farm. It could be quite a bit of a problem. So people are scared of that, which is why people aren't doing it. But that's also why I think more of us need to be doing it on a small scale again. Because when we have more of us doing it, just like the black market in Cuba, then maybe we can't get caught. But I'm not doing it, but others should do it. I'm just telling you that others should do it. Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. The system we have here in Canada, and I think it's similar in the States. I don't know a lot about the States, but if you're listening in the States, our Canadian government is like, wow, crazy. But the system is meant to make it so that small farmers don't want to farm. They make the rules and the hoops so big that it's just a little bit hard to navigate through. And that's where I come in, because I'm really good. I thought for a while here that I should be a lawyer on the side, because I'm really good at like taking in bureaucracy, putting it through my mind, being creative, working within the law, but then still getting what I want and doing what I want. And so, yeah, you don't have to be afraid of the system. You just need to know how to work within the system. I was talking with one of my other farm to table business clients the other day, and they were saying, oh, we just don't know that we want to get into it. There's this government grant we could get, but we're not sure because we don't trust the government. And I said, you do it. Do it. Like, if you can get money from the government, whether you agree with it or not, if you can get money from the government, you may as well do it. I sure didn't vote Liberal. I did not vote for the Liberal government. I did not vote for the NDP government, but they sure like to hand out money like Tic Tacs to whatever grants or whatever, especially if it's around climate change, which blows my mind. But hey, if money's available, take it. If you can further along your business, take it. And so they were saying that they're in a bit of a food desert here in Canada, and they could get money to build a greenhouse, and the government would pay up to 80 or 90% of this greenhouse. And I said, do it. Why are you holding yourself back? And they said, well, government, and we don't trust the government. And I said, don't trust the government. But yeah, I get that. I 100% get that. But take the money. And so it's thinking outside of the box and not being fearful within the system. It's just knowing the system and then working with it, working inside of it. Having said that, there is a lot of government overreach, and there can be a lot of government overreach. You can get creative in small ways, but when the government puts their hammer down, they put their hammer down. So I don't know if you know this, but in Canada, there was an ostrich farm, and we've had bird flu come through Canada in different areas. A friend of mine out by Olds here had the bird flu one year, a couple years ago, and the rules and the regulations and the this and this and this and the protocols that they had to do, they had to shut things down, and the farm next door had to it was insane, the bureaucracy. It was kind of frustrating for all the farmers around them, but she got rid of the bird flu. She got rid of her chickens. She didn't have chickens for a short period of time, and now she's back into chickens. But the CFIA went onto this ostrich farm. So this ostrich farm in BC got the bird flu. I think it was last December, where we are sitting in October. No, it's November 2025. So in December 2024, they got bird flu, and several ostriches died. And so I don't know if they called CFIA or what. CFIA got involved because some of the birds died because there was the bird flu. And whether we believe in bird flu or don't believe in bird flu, for the sake of this right now, for the sake of argument, we'll just go with, okay, bird flu is a thing. So they quarantined the farm, they did all the protocols, but they didn't cull or kill off the healthy ostriches at that point, because what happened was the ostriches started getting better. And what they figured out is some of these ostriches actually were building up an immune system. So the entire flock didn't die. It was just a handful, maybe a third, or I can't remember the details. And it's not really important how many exact birds died. But the point is, some died, some didn't. There was natural immunity, and the birds started living and thriving and being healthy again. So what does that say? It says they built up their immune system. And then CFIA, Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Now, these ostriches weren't meant for food, but Canadian Food Inspection Agency is the overall arching government bureaucratic body that oversees all of farming and all of food to make sure that everybody's safe and effective. I don't know. It's crazy. I understand parts of it, but parts of it is like, whoa. And after this, I trust them even less, because the overreach in this situation, they went through courts and they wanted to kill these birds. And the farmers were like, these birds are healthy. And the government, the CFIA, was still like, no, we still need to kill all the birds. And so there was a big fight. It went through courts and courts and courts. And, there was even local people, local businesses to Canada. One man, he offered to pay $100,000 to get the birds retested, just retest them to see what's going on. Is there still bird flu in these birds? What is still going on? And the CFIA said, no, we don't want your $100,000. We're still going to kill these birds. And eventually here, unfortunately, the CFIA killed all the birds recently. And it is so bureaucratic and awful. It is wrong. It is just so sad that the government went with CFIA, the government, big pharma. And my theory is that they don't actually want the cure for bird flu, because big pharma will not benefit off of the money. Follow the dollars. Every time you get big pharma, vaccines, pills, blah, blah, blah involved, somebody's making money. And so I think that's the reason that these birds had to die, or did die, is because big pharma got involved, and they don't actually want the cure for bird flu, is my theory. Hopefully I'm wrong. That's the thing. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but most times I say, hopefully I'm wrong. But yeah, they killed off the healthy birds because the book said so. And there's no common sense to it. There's no, honestly, science to it, because they didn't want to use those birds for science. They just thought, we have bird flu, we need to kill them off. Period. It's not okay. That was government overreach and bureaucratic overreach at its finest. It was not necessary. And I can understand after that why farmers would not want to get into farming and farm to table sales, because if that's the bureaucracy, why, you can almost lose your farm over it. It's pathetic and it's bullshit. Yeah. So let's get into raw dairy. So in Canada, we have the dairy quota system. Now, I understand from a farming perspective, and so if you're a dairy farmer on here listening today, I understand why you have your quota, even a chicken farmer. So dairy farmer and chicken farmers have their quota here in Canada. I get it. I understand why you have quota. And it's actually for the bigger farmers, it's actually good because it guarantees your pricing and it guarantees that your farm can actually tic-tac-tician the dollars out to make it. The problem is that quota system has gotten so big that it is completely unattainable for small producers. And so we're ending up with this big farm to table milk. Milk is the big one because you can still have a few chickens and things like that across Canada that fall under quota system, like below the numbers for the quota system. But in dairy, you're just not allowed to. And I don't know if that's government bureaucracy. I don't know if it's the farmers. I don't know who it is, but you're not allowed to sell raw dairy, period. I remember as a child, we used to go to the neighbors to get raw dairy from their bulk tank. And my grandparents grew up on a dairy farm. So we had raw dairy all the time. I grew up drinking raw dairy. You had to, the cream was on the top. You had to shake it. It's still a habit of mine to get a jug of milk and shake it because I can remember as a child, you shook your dairy jug to get the cream to mix back through again after it separated. And so it's completely illegal. And the bureaucracy around that is bullshit, in my opinion. They say it's all in the name of health and safety, but it's insane to me. I know from my experience, I've got 2 daughters that they have tummy troubles. If they get into too much dairy, and we don't have raw dairy for a long time because sometimes we weren't milking or whatever. So if they got into ice cream from town or butter or cheese was a big one on, let's say they had a pizza party with friends, their tummies would get upset because dairy would make their tummies upset. Now, when my daughters had a little bit of raw dairy, and we won't say how we got it, but we also have goats, so they got some of it there. But they got into some raw dairy, and next thing you know, it kind of resets their tummy and they can have dairy again. And so what happens when you drink non-pasteurized dairy is you're also getting the good bacteria. You're getting the good things that are still in the milk. Pasteurization kills off the bad bacteria, yes, but it also kills off the good bacteria. And we're created to have these immune system. Our guts are our immune system. And so when we're filling our guts with vaccines and antibiotics and medicine. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that. I've had antibiotics. My kids have had antibiotics. My animals have had antibiotics. I'm not against everything, but less is more. Come on, people. We were created with immune systems. Back in the day, I used to, back when I first started doing farmers markets, I used to be very, very concerned about, oh, I touched the money. Oh, I better wash my hands. Oh, I touched the money. I better put some hand sanitizer on. Oh, I touched the money. Oh, I better clean my hands. And so what that did was I was getting sick all the time because I soon didn't have an immune system. And then I watched a friend of mine and she dropped something on the floor of this farmer's market. And I'll never forget, she picked whatever it was up, kind of wiped it on her pants, ate it. And she said, I never get sick. And I went, huh. And I stopped washing my hands as much. And certainly after a little bit of time had passed, I stopped getting sick too. And I rarely get sick. I might get the slightest cold once in a while now, but that's it. Like, I don't get sick because I'm building my immune system. I'm feeding some of the quote unquote bad bacteria into my system so that my body naturally can fight it off. And so it's always fighting things off, always moving things through, and I don't get sick anymore. So back to the whole raw dairy thing, it is illegal to sell or share raw dairy. I get people all the time, they say, well, I can give it away. And I said, no, you can't. That's actually even still illegal. To give away raw dairy is illegal. The only thing that is legal is for you to milk your animal and drink it within your own household, within your own people and your own family, within your own home. I brought it to farmers markets because it's mine. I own that milk, but that might even be a little bit of a gray area, but whatever. I did it anyway. So yeah, it's just completely illegal. And I actually don't want to see it legalized because if it's legalized, there's a group in, I think Canada or Alberta, I don't remember, but it's a private group and it's people who want to make raw dairy legal. And you know what I say to that? I don't actually want it to be legal. Because when we make it legal, we invite the government in to put its rules and regulations and bureaucracy on that raw dairy. And next thing you know, they're going to make it unattainable for the small farmer yet again. And so that's the problem, is when you have governments come in with their great intentions, it hurts the small farmer. Back in the day, this is another little story that just popped in my head as I go here. I've got some notes, but as I go, it just comes in my head. So back in the day, I'm in Alberta. We had the NDP government come in, and they wanted to make farms safe. So they came in and they said every farm has to have WCB, which is Workers' Compensation Board, in case your employees get hurt. Because yes, by the letter of the law, there had been a few employees that got hurt, and there was nothing in place that, protected those employees from, what would happen if they really got hurt on the job and they couldn't work anymore. Yes, those were a few cases. But they came in, they wanted to make it so that children couldn't work on farms. Well, first of all, that's never going to work. That's part of being a farm kid, is you have to get out and work. I mean, my kids were outside working. I was outside working. Child labor is not even child labor. It's just like raising them right. I think every kid should be working on a farm. Those kids have more skills and more life skills than any other kid around. And then they wanted to put in this WCB. And so for myself, here's the thing. The government changing this rule actually dropped my WCB rates. So I had to have WCB because I brought in temporary foreign workers from Mexico to work on my farm. So I had to have WCB according to those rules regardless. But when the NDP government came in, it dropped my rates. So it actually helped me. But farmers were in a rage and in a tizzy, because there was lots and lots and lots of good farmers who had great insurance that were paying great insurance to protect their workers. And so the farmers were having these meetings and these rallies to say, like, just talk to us, just have conversations. But the government came in and said, nope, we know better. This is the rule. You've not been doing this, and we're here to protect the people. And the farmers were like, that's the rare case. That's the exception to the rule, not the rule. And so there was no consultation. And eventually, I don't even remember what happened. I think WCB still went through, and it was bureaucratic and whatever. I don't know, because it didn't really necessarily affect me negatively. But the point is, there was something in place for most farmers. And what they should have said is, prove something. Prove that you either have WCB or good insurance. You have to have one or the other. That's the rule. But like, what you guys want to do is up to you. I don't know. It's government bureaucracy. They also, this was another thing that year. They came in, and my guys from Mexico, they would come in. I paid them, at that point, I was paying them $15 an hour to work in my greenhouse. They wanted to work long, long hours. I didn't have to pay overtime. And they said, okay, in the greenhouse industry, workers can only work 8 hours, and you have to pay them overtime after that. And I went, okay, that's not really going to work. And then they said, but field workers don't have to do it. And so I went back to the government and I'm like, I have a greenhouse and I have field crops. So which part of my farm is a farm and which part of my farm is not a farm? Because, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth here, because all of it was growing food for people. And what the greenhouses did was they ended up screwing their farm workers, because they can't afford to pay more. So they just paid them their regular 8-hour shift, and, that was it. So eventually the government did come around, finally listened to the people that are in the trenches with it, and they switched the rule up back to the way it was. And so again, tic-tactician. If you learn one thing today, is you think about the box. Here's the bureaucratic bullshit box that they want to put you in. I did not want to screw my employees. I, the farmer, did not want to screw my employees because of that government bureaucracy. So I said to my employees, okay, you're only allowed to work 8 hours in my greenhouse, and then go work in the field, because if you want the hours, here's the hours. And they did. They wanted to work. That's what they came to Canada for. And so we thought outside of the box, and we kept track of our hours that way. So, and we did. We kept track of these hours in the greenhouse. They had to punch in and out twice, like, just so that we could keep track of it. insanity to me. Government doesn't always, there's a little quote, men in coveralls. Men in coveralls created the country or built the country, and men in suits have destroyed it. And I really feel like that's happened. We've gotten to a point in farming, in agriculture, where, it's about men in suits coming in, telling you the rules and regulations, and they have no idea what farming's even like. So, and even the big farms, some of them don't even know what it's like, because they're sitting in an office, they're running their farm, they're managing their farm, but they're not on boots on the ground doing the work. And so we need to flip the script. We need to get back to old school farming. We need to get back to small scale farming. We need to get back to our communities and working with one another to have our own food system back. So that, again, back to the whole, I go on rabbit trails, but back to the whole, I don't believe that the government should be bureaucratic and put the rules and regulations in for raw dairy, because they will just wreck the system. They will wreck the systems. They will wreck the black market. We've got a lot of black market going on here in Canada, and I encourage you with the black market of raw dairy. We need more of you. So if you're listening today, do black market dairy. Don't tell people about it. Figure out who your people are. You can find customers probably pretty easily, and but make sure it's black. It is black market, because it's illegal, and do more of that. Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching, and let's make your farm pay you back. I got another bureaucratic story. So it's not really government related. It's actually grocery store related. So back when I had my 36,000 square foot greenhouse, I was growing mostly cucumbers, some tomatoes, and then some peppers eventually. The grocery store bureaucracy actually pushed me out of that market, of selling to grocery stores. So when my parents were selling cucumbers to the warehouse, they were getting about $7 a dozen. And then my dad actually figured out that if he went straight to the store, skipping the warehouse, you could get more money out of the dozen cucumbers. So straight to the store was about $12 a dozen. And so we had been selling, myself and my ex-husband, we had been selling to 3 local grocery stores. Two of them fell into bureaucracy, and the other one was just great and lovely. And Carmen's Big Way in Crossfield, if you ever go there, make sure you get some of their food, because they're fantastic. But anyways, the other 2 stores in Carstairs and in Didsbury, we were selling there. So 3 stores total. We were doing about $30,000 worth of sales in 1 year to those 3 stores. So they weren't big sales. It wasn't lots of money. It wasn't great. It was good. It was just enough to keep and supplement and get some produce moving. So we were getting like the middle ground. So we weren't getting retail dollars. We weren't getting wholesale dollars, but we were getting middle dollars, which really worked for us. And then 1 year, the produce managers all changed hands. And I don't know if it was government pushback or what, but they demanded that we get this Canada Gap certification. What Canada Gap certification is it's probably about a 6-inch binder worth of paperwork, bureaucratic paperwork, that you have to do this, and 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 then you have to make sure that you document it all, and then you have to make sure la 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 la. By the time you paid for that binder, the checks and balances, the upgrades to make that binder so it was a legal thing, and that you checked all the boxes, bureaucratic boxes. By the time you did all those things, it was going to cost my farm like $10,000 or $12,000. I don't remember, $15,000. It was going to cost me copious amounts of money. So it was going to be a $10,000 touch to be able to sell $30,000 worth of wholesale product to a grocery store. And I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. And the grocery store managers were beside themselves. They didn't like the answer to this bureaucratic bullshit either. But they said, we have to comply. We have to do this. And I said, Canada GAP certification makes sense. If you have a massive, massive, massive greenhouse in Leamington, Ontario, they need their Canada GAP certification. I get that because they're taking their cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers and putting them straight across Canada. They're going into every grocery store, restaurant, all the different things. Once those cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers leave the farm, who knows where they all go? So there has to be some traceability on it. But for my small farm, we were at 3 local grocery stores and a handful of markets. We were probably doing about 10 or 12 or 15 markets a week at that point. So if for some reason my food would have gone bad or made someone sick, they would have caught us very easily. And we had insurance, we had liability insurance. And so, it could have all been mitigated and we could have and should have been able to just sell to those grocery stores. But, bureaucracy hurt my farm. And so then we were just at farmers markets. And then, here's one more layer of bureaucracy at farmers markets. And this is a big problem in Canada and in the United States. I was just talking on my social media with someone, huge problem in Canada and the United States. Bureaucracy in our farmers market food system in Canada and the United States is a massive problem because lots and lots and lots of people are buying and selling produce, meat, vegetables, whatever it might be, saying that they are the farmer, but they buy it at a warehouse, mark it up, and sell it as farm to table. Huge reason why I'm not farming right now. I couldn't compete with the cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers that were being bought and sold for less than what I could grow and sell my cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers for at the farmer's market. So spread the word. Problems at farmer's market, North America. This is a North American thing. It's in the States. It's in Canada. There are people buying and selling these items as farm direct, and they don't even have a farm. So make sure you know your farmer. Who grew it? Where did it come from? When was it picked? How was it grown? Was it raised? Where did you get it butchered? Can I come to your farm and have a look around? Alberta does Alberta Open Farm Days. Go to the farm. Ask how big the farm is. Size matters. How many cows do you have? How many cow calves do you have? How many pigs do you have? How many chickens do you have? How many acres of vegetables do you have? 1 to 2 acres of garden does 1 to 2 markets in a week. That's it, people. So if someone says they're doing 80 markets a week and they only have 2 acres of garden, doesn't work. The math doesn't math on that. They're buying and selling something from someplace. So here's the thing with this. Why does it even matter? Why does it matter that someone's buying and selling at a farmer's market and turning around and selling it for cheaper? Why does that even matter? What's the point to this bureau? Like, why does it even matter that the bureaucracy is hurting the farmer? I spoke to one MLA and he said, well, it's free market. Like, we can't get involved with that. And the reason it matters, this is the real reason it matters, is because if we are only using our big food system, so the cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers that are being bought and sold from the biggest warehouse in the province, yes, they're grown in a farm. Yes, they are Albertan. But the reason it matters is because it pushed the small farmer out. At that point in my career, I was a single mom. I bought my ex-husband out and I was competing against that produce. And eventually I didn't win. My farm didn't make it. I was $100,000 short that year. And if the other vendors were told, even if they were just told to take their tomatoes off their booth, even if they couldn't take tomatoes, if the only item at a farmer's market that I didn't have to compete on was tomatoes, I would probably still have my farm. That's a pretty big and bold statement, but it's true. I would have sold $100,000 more worth of tomatoes and I would still have my farm today. So this is why it matters, because if we are only using our big system where the food is cheap, we're not going to have our small farmers left. And another friend of mine, she's left wing and I love her. We have debates all the time. Some of my very best friends are left wing and we were having a debate and she was asking me, she said, how can the government provide cheap food for the people? So she talked about government grocery stores and I said, yeah, Cuba does government grocery stores and we'll see how well that works out for them. They're hungry people right now. And she said, well, how is it, Dawn, can you be creative with me? Because I'm a very creative thinker. This is why I'm a good coach for your farm to table business, because I'm very creative. I'm very think outside the box. I'm a problem solver. She said, Dawn, how can we solve the problem of food for people? And there's two schools of thought. I have a different school of thought than she does. She wants cheap food. And I said, if you're going to have cheap food, the best way to do it is to take everybody, put them in a city, have a massive, massive feedlot just outside of the city with a massive killing plant, have a massive dairy, have a massive greenhouse, one that will feed the entire city. And then you're not having to truck stuff, ship stuff, whatever. You're feeding the people right outside the city with these massive, 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 they're not even farms at that point, massive farms. I said, that's how you're going to get cheaper food. Big greenhouses run their greenhouses more efficiently. Big dairy farms, big agriculture, they're more efficient. But the trade-off of that, yeah, you get cheap food. But the trade-off of that is he who controls the food controls the people. And it will put every small farmer that's in business out of business. So if that's what you want, if that's what the goal is, you can get cheap food. Sure, absolutely. On the flip side, my solution to world hunger problems, and I'm actually teaching for a local college. I've got to teach at 10 o'clock tonight online, because I'm teaching people on small farms how to do small agriculture for their communities. That's what Dawn's Dirt is all about, is teaching people on a smaller scale how to do farm to table and feeding your communities. Yes, the food might be a little bit more money, but it's going to be better, healthier, and you're putting into your communities, you're putting into families, and you're putting into your small micro economies. And that's what we need more of. And if every community, every country, every county, every town had a small food system, your local dairy, your local butcher, your local baker, your local candlestick maker, that is the key to solving world hunger, because you can take it one step further. Every family should go back to the 1950s, 40s, 30s, 20s and grow a garden and have some chickens in their backyard. You want to know how to feed the world? That's it. Gardens and chickens. And the bureaucracy doesn't have to be around that. I hear that there's countries in the world trying to shut down chickens in backyards and shut down gardens in backyards. That is happening in parts of the world. But we need to stop that from happening here. And how we're going to do that is more of us just need to do it. And that is real food security, because even if your grocery store shuts down, you've got vegetables and you got some chickens. Farm to table really works because people trust people. As we get into this age of technology, AI, digital ID, blah, 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 we're going to need to know our communities and we're going to need to know our people. So here's something to think about. Food is a commodity. I know that in my freezers right now, I have lots and lots of chicken. I have chickens that were butchered. I actually have chickens and roosters, hens and roosters in my shed right now, and I will have eggs. And if the day ever came that they said, oh, the grocery store cloned meat or whatever, or digital currency, that's what it is. The day they say digital currency comes in and you can't buy and sell food, I already have girls and boys in my shed so I can breed them and hatch them and make more chickens and have more babies, because that's natural. And I'm not going to comply to government bureaucracy. I'm not interested. We saw it with the trucker rally. We saw it with everything. I'm not interested in complying with government bureaucracy. They don't have my and my family's best interests at heart. Sometimes they say, well, we have everybody's best interests at heart, but I don't think so. It's about power and control. Power and control, power and control. Follow the dollars, follow the money. So yeah, farm to table works best because when you know your neighbor, when you trust your neighbor. And here's the other thing. People always think, oh, well, I know so-and-so farmer, Joe Farmer down the road. So if that time ever comes, I know Joe Farmer down the road. But the question is, are you supporting Joe Farmer now? Because when the time comes, everybody's going to be going to Joe Farmer, and Joe Farmer is going to have to think, who am I going to sell to? That was a very real thing during COVID. I had people coming to me. They were afraid, the unvaxxed, they were afraid that at some point they wouldn't be allowed in the grocery stores. And they were coming to me tears streaming down their face sometimes. You have food, right? And I said, yes, I have food. Come to me, come to the farm. I'll feed you, you know? And so like people were afraid of where the food system was going. But I thought to myself, and this is scary things to think about when you're a farmer and when you this was really scary for me to think about. Who would I sell to and who would I not sell to if the event came where I had to feed the people and I could only choose so many, when I was the option for food because there's not enough in our grocery stores? And I thought to myself, I would feed the people that I recognize them, that I know them, that fed me for all those years going up, leading up to it. So that's why it's so important to buy from a farmer. And if you want to get into farming, if you have some land, even a backyard, we can make you some money off that land. We can teach you how to make some money off of your land and off of your space. And so important. Know your farmer now and be prepared now. Build those relationships now. Build your farm now. Build your community now, because if shit ever hits the fan, you're going to need that community and you're going to need them quick. And those circles are going to become real important real quick. And if you're not doing it now, they're going to say, sorry, I don't have enough. I don't know you. So important. So let's just recap here. We want to connect the dots and we want to see the patterns in this. So raw milk is illegal. Follow the money. Ostriches are destroyed. Follow the money. Small farmers are regulated to death. Follow the money. Farmers are squeezed. Follow the money. Corporations are protected. Follow the money. It's all about power, control, money, and bureaucracy. And that's why the bureaucracy is coming in. It's not about safety. It's about control. So how can we take the food system back? We need to buy direct from our local farmers. We need to know who our farmer is. We need to talk to them. We need to build relationship with them. We need to ask them lots of questions. We need to grow our own vegetables even in our small spaces. If you're listening to this podcast today and you're not growing something in your backyard, you're not doing it right. I'm sorry to be so bold and blunt and brutal about it, but if you're not growing vegetables in 2026, you're doing something wrong. Grow something. Even if you live in a balcony in an apartment building, you can grow something on your patio. Everyone should grow something to contribute to our food system. Raise chickens if you can. You know, when I was looking at houses in town, I was looking at where can I hide my chickens. That was the biggest thing that I was worried about, is where can I plant my garden and where can I hide my chickens, because I was actually that afraid of our food system and that afraid to move back into town. So build real community and networks. I went back to farmers markets after being away for a full year, and I built community. I had people hugging me, so happy to see me. They bought my chicken, they bought my eggs, and I had relationships that I had built back when I had my vegetable days. And you want to support your local farm stands, farmers markets, and local growers. And you want to build them yourself. If you have some space, get in touch with me. I can help show you how to make money off of the space you have. Everyone should have a little stand. If you've got some land, if you got an acreage, be doing something. Raise some chickens, have some eggs, grow a big garden, have a little farm stand, because that will build our community and our food system and take dollars out of the corporation food system. Grocery prices in Canada are rising and rising and rising. And yes, the price you will pay at a farm stand or a farmer's market is a little bit more, but the quality you're going to get at a farmer's market is just that much more. People always said to me, "Oh, your tomatoes are so expensive." And I said, "Yeah, but can the grocery store guarantee their tomatoes for a full week? Because I guarantee my tomatoes for the full week. If my tomatoes go bad before you come back next week to the farmer's market, I will replace them up. No questions asked, because it's my issue, not your issue." And so I did replace the odd tomato. That was my customer service, but it's about the relationship and the food and the quality and the taste and the flavor and the shelf life and all of it that you're going to get from farm to table is so much better. So if you buy the tomatoes in the grocery store, you bring them home, and 2 days later they go bad, you wasted your money. But if you buy your tomatoes at a farmer's market and you can still eat them 2 weeks later because they're still good, you didn't waste your money, because it just gives you that much more time. So if you want to know how to make money off your food, reach out. Send me a DM, send me an email, send me something, and we will get you doing farm to table sales. Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode fired you up or opened your eyes, share it with a friend. And if you're ready to grow food, raise animals, or start your own farm-to-table business, reach out. I can help you learn exactly where to begin. Thanks so much.